All right, I'm going to go over in more detail what needs to be included in your review journal and give you some instruction on how to start that. So you'll have the instructions. They're already printed for you. They're also on the Google Drive. They're not in any particular folder. They're just in the Algebra Drive. And so I've already talked to you about that there are 10 objectives, and each objective is worth 10 points. Each objective has 4 things: a title, an example problem, key vocabulary, and then a journal entry. And so I've done sort of an example here with the first objective, which I've titled Solve Equations. So your title can, you can come up with the title. It obviously should have something to do or kind of give me an indication of which objective it is. And so here's my example problem. Notice how I annotated it over here, meaning that I gave some description to my steps because my steps were just strictly mathematical, solving an equation. So, but I went ahead and described my steps over to the right. Nothing crazy, but just a little bit of detail about what I was doing in each step. And then you have vocab. I listed some vocab here. I didn't put the definitions. You get to decide and need to decide what vocab is important for that objective. And so you can look back in your video notes. That's a really good tool. But that may not be sufficient. You may need to, some of these objectives are multiple video notes in one objective. And so you might need to look at multiple videos, or maybe you need to look in the book for some ideas. But you should have at least one vocab word for each objective. And I don't want to say more is better, but I do want to say that you need to make sure that you're giving me a complete list and not just giving me 1 or 2 things. Make sure you're really thinking about what vocabulary is used. And also, it's good to have vocab because then you may want to use that in your journal entry. So for the journal entry, you need to go ahead and write out the prompt. And I just kind of started a journal entry here. The first step in solving this problem was to distribute the 3 outside the parentheses. When I did this, ... finish that statement and go on. And this gave me a final answer of x equals -2. That journal entry needs to be 1 to 2 paragraphs. They need to be complete thought. I need to be able to follow the thought. Make sure you look at the rubric to know what I'm looking for there. Now, another one of the objectives is about slope. And you'll notice in the objective, it says, I can find slope from 2 points and a graph. So that means you need 2 examples. You need 2 examples for this one. For number 4, it says, I can graph a line from slope-intercept, standard, and point slope. So you need 3 examples there, 1 of each. This one is 2 examples. And I think that's, and then number 8, where I can solve systems of equations and inequalities, graphing, elimination, and substituting. So that's 3 examples. And inequalities is a different example. So you should actually have 4 total examples here. So for the slope, I said, okay, so my first example is find the slope between the points. And I didn't actually give points here, but then I would work that out and I would show that example. And again, annotating as necessary, explaining some steps that you took. And then another example would be find the slope of the line given. So notice that I put in some graph paper here. Okay, I'm working on lined paper, but I needed a graph. And then I can show my steps on the graph of how I'm doing this. So just be sure that you have all the examples that you need. Make sure that if you need graph paper, you're using graph paper. I just took this coordinate plane off the internet. So if you need to print some of that, that's fine. Remember I told you you should have graph paper. So, and that can be you just taping it into the paper. That's fine. I would recommend you probably working it out on the graph paper and then taping it in and maybe not trying to tape it and then work over it. That may be a little bit more difficult. So that's what you should be working on. If you want to work on kind of a rough draft on the computer, that's fine, but you should be working this on paper. Again, you need lined paper, just like I modeled here, not just blank paper, because there needs to be, it needs to be very organized and very neat. It needs to look nice. I'm going to have to read a lot of these, and so I need it to look nice. So that's kind of the overview of that. My recommendation is that you start looking up example problems, maybe looking up some of the vocab. And when I get back to class on Thursday, if you have more questions about specific things, then you can ask me that then. If you have something that you need answered immediately, just send me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Hope y'all have a great class. See you later. Bye.